The earliest umbrellas weren't necessarily designed with rain in mind. Instead, they were large, ornate affairs carried by servants who walked behind their noble employers, shielding them from the sun. These were more like ceremonial parasols than the compact, practical brolly that you'll find in most people's bags today. But it turns out, these status symbols had a long history in ancient China. In fact, archaeologists have uncovered an ornately carved bone umbrella handle dating back to the Shang dynasty, which took power around 1600 BCE. This was hundreds of years before the umbrella was adapted for use against rain, and even longer before someone had the bright idea of carrying one for themselves. You see, the earliest evidence we have of people using umbrellas is actually from ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and India. Each culture developed their own version of this handy tool independently during the latter half of the second millennium BCE, and all three were used initially as sunshades. In Egypt, they were typically made of papyrus reeds or palm wood, while Mesopotamian umbrellas were crafted from cedar wood or sometimes bronze. Meanwhile, Indian umbrellas featured a wooden frame covered in precious metals like gold or silver, depending on the wealth of the user. But no matter what material they were made from, these early umbrellas weren't just functional, they were fashionable. The wealthy commissioned elaborate designs that could be status symbols. They also served as a way of showing off a ruler's power and wealth. Take, for instance, this bronze umbrella from Mesopotamia. It dates back to between 2000 and 1500 BCE and is decorated with scenes of hunting, warfare, and processions. Meanwhile, the parasol used by the Indian royals was often richly decorated with jewels, ivory, and precious stones. Some were even considered sacred objects. But while those cultures used umbrellas as personal accessories, ancient Chinese umbrellas were primarily a symbol of authority. You see, the first written mention of an umbrella in China comes from the 11th century BCE, appearing in a chapter of the classic of etiquette called the Feudalism. It describes a massive umbrella with a 5-layered canopy made of deerskin, used to shield the son of the king from the sun. And according to historical records, this wasn't just a one-off. For centuries, only the emperor and a few high-ranking members of the nobility were allowed to use these large parasols. In fact, the size of an umbrella became directly linked to a person's social class. For example, the emperor was permitted to use an umbrella with a canopy up to 12 feet wide, while dukes and marquises could have canopies no larger than 9 feet. Meanwhile, regular old nobles could use umbrellas with canopies measuring between 6 and 8 feet across. And these were still considered quite large by today's standards. To put that in perspective, the largest umbrella ever opened was over 3,400 square feet. It was created in London in 2014 to commemorate the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. So these ancient Chinese umbrellas were really something else. According to historical records, they had long bamboo shafts and curved handles that were either round or square in cross-section. But not everyone who had the right bloodline could get their hands on one. The use of large umbrellas was restricted to men of rank, and they often had to demonstrate their status with a special ceremony. For example, when Duke Wan of Qi arrived at the King of Siacha's palace, he had to present his credentials. He did this in part by unfolding his elephant-sized umbrella inside the palace walls. If he had unveiled it outside the gates, his head would have been chopped off. However, despite their imposing size and elaborate design, ancient Chinese umbrellas weren't terribly practical. They were primarily used during formal ceremonies, especially at court. That's why the nobility had servants carry them. Archaeologists found evidence of this practice in tomb paintings, sculptures, and murals depicting attendants holding large parasols over their bosses' heads. One particularly well-preserved example comes from the tomb of Li Chang, princess of the Western Han dynasty. She died in 05 BCE, and her final resting place includes a number of artifacts from her former life, including 2 intricately carved wooden umbrella handles. These were likely ceremonial objects used during her lifetime. While the princess was alive, her servants would have carried these umbrellas for her whenever she stepped outside. And since they were mostly used for formal events, the umbrellas didn't need to be opened and closed very often. After all, if it started raining, she would have stayed indoors along with everyone else. You see, ancient Chinese society was deeply affected by the concept of yin and yang, the belief that the world is divided into 2 fundamental and complementary parts. Yin is the dark, feminine principle that represents things like cold, earth, and the moon, while yang is the light, masculine principle that represents things like heat, sky, and the sun. The idea of yin and yang influenced many aspects of life, including architecture, art, religion, and even burial practices. In traditional Chinese architecture, for instance, buildings are often designed to take advantage of the flow of yin and yang energy. This might mean placing windows and doors in certain areas to promote the flow of air, or arranging furniture in a room in a specific way to balance the yin and yang energies. And it seems that the umbrella also had to conform to these principles. See, the umbrella was associated with the sun and therefore represented the yang. The problem was another object associated with yang, the fan. And as time went on, the fan became more popular and more practical as a sunshade. Not only was it lighter than the cumbersome umbrella, but it could be easily folded up and kept on one's person, meaning one wouldn't have to rely on attendants to carry it for them. Of course, this didn't stop the wealthy from continuing to use giant parasols. It just meant that the umbrella had to evolve. Starting around the 6th century CE, people began carrying smaller umbrellas that they opened and closed themselves. Eventually, they even developed a compact folding umbrella that could fit in a sleeve. But these were still largely reserved for the elite. It wasn't until the Song dynasty, which ran from 960 to 1279, that umbrellas became common among ordinary citizens. And there's one thing in particular that spurred this shift: practicality. You see, the invention of paper umbrellas during the Song dynasty helped make them more affordable and accessible to everyday people. These umbrellas consisted of a wooden frame covered in paper rather than silk or cotton. Not only were they cheaper to produce, but paper was also a better material for keeping the rain off your head. This, along with a growing population and the development of cities, made them a necessity in everyday life. However, the transition to carrying an umbrella for oneself didn't happen overnight. Many people still preferred to have an attendant carry their shade for them. In fact, in some cases, this preference almost caused a revolt. In the 17th century, the increasingly unpopular Qing government decided to institute a parasol tax. Officials believed that having an attendant carry an umbrella was a decadent practice and tried to discourage it by levying a special tax on anyone who wanted to use one. Needless to say, this didn't go over well, and people responded by making their umbrellas smaller and less conspicuous. But whether it was due to taxes or personal preference, the umbrella as a status symbol began to fall out of style. Today, you're just as likely to find them lying abandoned in a public space as you are to see someone carrying one to shield themselves from the rain. Now check out what the umbrella means in different cultures, or watch. How do you get rid of a broken umbrella? The umbrella When you think of an umbrella, you may think of a handy tool for keeping dry in the rain or out of the sun. But did you know that umbrellas have been around since ancient times? The earliest umbrellas looked very different than they do today, but they still fulfilled the same purpose. So let us take a closer look at the evolution of this everyday item to see how it all began. One of the earliest civilizations to use umbrellas was ancient Egypt. Although not much is known about their umbrellas, some mummies were found buried with them, suggesting that they were an important part of their culture. Umbrellas were mainly used by women in ancient Egypt, and they would often carry them as a symbol of wealth and power. They were typically made of fine linen or cotton and decorated with intricate patterns and designs. Umbrellas were also used by performers and musicians who would use them as a prop during their shows. Moving on to ancient Greece, we find that umbrellas were used similarly to how they are today, primarily for protection from the sun and rain. However, they were still mostly carried by women, and were often seen as a symbol of feminine beauty and grace. In Greek art, umbrellas are depicted as being carried by nymphs and other female deities, highlighting their importance in Greek culture. During the Hellenistic period, which followed the classical Greek era, umbrellas became more popular among male politicians and wealthy citizens. This is likely due to the introduction of new materials and designs that made umbrellas more durable and practical for everyday use. Despite this, umbrellas were still largely associated with women and were often given as gifts to female lovers. Perhaps one of the most interesting uses of umbrellas in ancient Greece was during the performances of the playwright Euripides. His plays often featured characters carrying umbrellas as a way of giving them shade and allowing them to speak more freely without being blinded by the sun. In ancient Rome, umbrellas were used by both men and women, although they were still more common among women. Roman umbrellas were often made of silk and feathers, which made them more fragile than the sturdier Greek umbrellas. Despite this, they were still used for the same purposes, such as protection from the elements and as a symbol of wealth and power. Roman emperors and their wives were often depicted with umbrellas in their portraits and sculptures, emphasizing their importance in Roman society. One of the most famous examples of a Roman woman using an umbrella comes from a fresco in the Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii. The painting shows a woman holding an umbrella while her slave holds a parasol over her head. This would have been a common sight in the streets of Pompeii, as wealthy women would have been attended by slaves who helped them carry their belongings, including their umbrellas. The use of umbrellas in the Roman Empire was not limited to Italy and the Mediterranean. As the empire expanded throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa, so did the popularity of umbrellas. They were mentioned by historians such as Pliny the Younger and Martial, who wrote about the practicality and convenience of using umbrellas in hot and sunny climates. While umbrellas were fairly common in ancient Rome, they never caught on in Greece to the same extent. This is likely due to the climate, as Greece is known for its rainy and cloudy weather, which makes it less necessary to carry an umbrella. However, there is one notable exception to this. As the ancient Greek poet Homer mentions a type of umbrella called a parepta in his epic poem The Odyssey. According to Homer, the hero Odysseus and his men use a large sail as an umbrella to protect themselves from the sun and rain. This type of umbrella was likely similar to those used in ancient Egypt and Rome, made of a waterproof material such as linen or canvas and supported by a wooden pole or frame. Unfortunately, not much else is known about the use of umbrellas in ancient Greece, and they do not appear in many other literary or artistic sources from the time period. This may be because they were simply not as widespread or popular in Greece as they were in other parts of the Mediterranean. Despite this, The ancient Greeks did have a word for umbrella, which was perima, and it was sometimes used as a synonym for skya, which means shade. This suggests that umbrellas were at least known about in Greece and may have been used on occasion, even if they were not as common as in Rome or Egypt. Ancient Chinese umbrellas were typically made of silk or linen and were supported by a wooden or bamboo frame. They were often decorated with elaborate designs and were used by both men and women as a symbol of wealth and status. The Chinese umbrella was more than just a tool for protection from the elements. It was an important part of traditional Chinese culture and was often used in religious ceremonies and festivals. For example, the opening and closing of the umbrella was used to symbolize the opening and closing of the heavens in Taoist rituals. In Chinese art, umbrellas are often used as a motif to represent the passage of time and the changing seasons. For example, an umbrella may be used to symbolize the rainy season or the arrival of spring. Another interesting use of the umbrella in China was as a form of transportation. In some cases, people would ride on top of umbrellas that were carried by others. This was likely done during the Qingming festival, when people would visit the graves of their ancestors, and would often carry umbrellas to pay respects to the dead. The umbrella was also an important part of traditional Chinese medicine. It was believed that the umbrella could help prevent illness by keeping the body dry and warding off evil spirits. In fact, many Chinese families kept a special umbrella specifically for medical purposes. As the Silk Road flourished, umbrellas made their way into ancient India and Persia. While information about these umbrellas is limited, they were likely similar to their Chinese counterparts in terms of design and function. They served as a symbol of wealth and status, were used in religious ceremonies, and were even incorporated into traditional dances and performances. The umbrella's journey through the ancient world is a fascinating one, showing how this simple invention was adapted and used in different cultures for various purposes. From its humble beginnings in Egypt to its widespread use in China and beyond, the umbrella has come a long way, and yet it continues to serve the same basic function that it always has: to provide shelter from the elements and a bit of shade along the way. Although the umbrella had already been invented by ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, the umbrella as we know it today did not become popular until the 17th century in Europe. When did umbrellas first start being used by men? And why did it take so long for them to catch on? Well, the answer is likely due to a combination of factors, including social norms, practicality, and availability. For much of history, umbrellas were seen as a feminine accessory and were primarily used by women. This is reflected in works of art, literature, and archaeological evidence from ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Umbrellas were often depicted as being carried by women and were sometimes seen as a symbol of feminine beauty and grace. Additionally, the delicate nature of early umbrellas, which were made of materials like silk and feathers, may have contributed to their association with women. These materials were not only more fragile, but also more expensive and time-consuming to produce, making them less practical for men who were often seen as needing sturdier, more durable items. Furthermore, the use of umbrellas may have been influenced by social norms and gender roles. In many cultures, women were expected to be more passive and refined, while men were encouraged to be active and strong. Carrying an umbrella may have been seen as a more feminine activity, and men who wanted to conform to societal expectations may have been less likely to use them. However, as the Industrial Revolution and mass production techniques improved, umbrellas became more practical and affordable for everyday use. By the 19th century, umbrellas had become a common sight on the streets of London, Paris, and other European cities. Men and women of all social classes were now using them to protect themselves from the rain or sun. And by the 20th century, umbrellas had become a staple of everyday life for people all over the world. So while the umbrella has ancient roots that can be traced back thousands of years, it wasn't until relatively recently that they started being used by men. The shift from women's accessories to everyday items for all genders reflects broader changes in society, technology, and our relationship with the world around us. From their ancient origins as symbols of wealth and power to their modern incarnation as a simple tool for staying dry in the rain, umbrellas have come a long way. And yet, they continue to be an essential part of life for people all over the world. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hi, this is your host. Today, we are going to see an umbrella, which is more than just a shield against the rain. It's a symbol of power, faith, and devotion. This is the story of the fourth type of umbrella, the umbrella for four, where four comes from the Sanskrit word chata, meaning four. It also means for seasons, or for directions, or even for elements: air, water, fire, and earth. These umbrellas represent royalty, religion, and regional identities. They are architectural marvels, engineering feats, and art forms all at once. This is a journey through time, tradition, and taste. It's Umbrella Day. Let's get to it. Our story begins in ancient India around the 5th century CE. Back then, Indian rulers had two types of umbrellas over their heads. The first one was the chhatra, a small, lightweight umbrella made from cotton or linen that they used for shade during daytime. The second was the chata, a large, sturdy umbrella made from oil paper or bamboo that they used to protect themselves from rain and sun. But there was a problem. These two umbrellas were only useful when placed inside a chariot, because they were too heavy to carry on foot and too delicate to use in rough terrain. Plus, carrying them was a hassle because they had to be tied to the chariot with ropes. That's why soldiers had to walk ahead of the king, holding up the chhatra while others followed behind carrying the chata. This long and winding procession took up a lot of time and space, not to mention the risk of damage or theft. What they needed was an umbrella that could stand on its own and follow them everywhere. And so, the monsoon was born. The monsoon was a new type of umbrella designed to be portable and self-supporting, but also grand and majestic. Instead of being carried by ropes, the monsoon stood on a wooden or metal pole that could be held by a single person. This pole was usually decorated with flowers, jewels, or religious symbols according to the ruler's taste and status. The canopy of the monsoon was also larger and more elaborate than before, made of silk, velvet, or leather, and sometimes even gold. It featured intricate patterns and motifs that showcased the skills of the artisans who made them. And the size of the monsoon was no accident either. It had to be big enough to cover the king and his entourage, but not too big that it would become unwieldy or impractical. The perfect size was a square or octagonal canopy that could span up to 7 feet, half the height of the king's chariot. But the monsoon wasn't just a practical innovation or a fashion statement. It was also a way to express the divine right of kings. In ancient Indian texts, like the Arthashastra and the Vishnu Purana, the parasol is described as one of the 7 symbols of royal power, along with the lion, elephant, horse, sword, jewel, throne, and banner. These symbols were called the Sapta Makuta, the 7 crowns of royalty. The parasol represented the sky, the ultimate source of life and prosperity. It also symbolized the sun, the giver of light and energy, as well as the moon, the ruler of night and seasons. By carrying the parasol, the king was seen as the representative of the gods on earth, the one who brought order and justice to his people. However, the monsoon wasn't limited to the king alone. It became a common sight to see merchants, bankers, Brahmins, and other high-ranking members of society using them too. This was because the monsoon was not just a symbol of wealth and power, but also a commodity that could be traded and exchanged. In fact, the monsoon industry grew so large and profitable that entire guilds of parasol makers emerged across India. One of the most famous parasol centers was in a town called Kumbakonam in the state of Tamil Nadu. Here, a group of Muslim artisans specialized in making ornate parasols for the Nayaka rulers of Madurai. These parasols were not only beautiful, but also durable and waterproof. The artisans used a unique technique to join the bamboo ribs of the parasol together without any metal fittings, making them lighter and more flexible. They also developed a special dye to color the fabric canopy in vibrant hues that did not fade in the sun or rain. These Kumbakonam parasols became a sought-after item in the region, often given as gifts to VIPs or used in religious ceremonies. Speaking of religion, the monsoon was not only a part of royal processions, but also temple rituals. In some cases, the monsoon was used to symbolize the presence of the deity, such as the goddess Parasokthi Ammon in the town of Pola, whose shrine was built inside a giant parasol. In other cases, the monsoon was used to honor the deity, such as Lord Vishnu, at the Ranganathaswamy temple in Srirangam, where a huge golden parasol was placed over his head as part of the daily worship. The monsoon was also used to protect the deity from the elements, such as the idol of Nandi at the Lapaksi temple in Andhra Pradesh, where a large stone parasol was erected over him to shield him from the scorching heat. The monsoon was also used to enhance the beauty and grandeur of the temple, such as the gopurams or towers that adorned many Hindu temples. These gopurams often had intricate carvings of gods, demons, and mythical creatures, but they also had colorful canopies that resembled parasols, adding a touch of elegance and vibrancy to the structure. But the monsoon wasn't limited to Hinduism alone. It also found its place in Buddhism and Jainism, two other religions that originated in India and shared many similarities with Hinduism. For instance, the Jain Tirthankaras, the Buddha and Mahavira, were often depicted with a parasol in their iconography, symbolizing their enlightenment and liberation from suffering. Similarly, the parasol was also used in the Buddhist tradition to shade the Buddha and his followers from the sun and rain, as well as to ward off evil spirits and negative energies. One of the most famous examples of a Buddhist parasol is the one at the Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment. This parasol is made of gold and precious stones, and is said to be one of the holiest objects in Buddhism. Now, let's take a quick break from the history and symbolism of the parasol and talk about how they actually work. Because don't forget, this is also an engineering marvel. The key to a good parasol is the pole. It needs to be strong and stable to support the canopy and withstand the wind and rain. The pole is usually made of wood or metal, such as bamboo, teak, or brass. The wood is preferred because it is lighter and more flexible, but the metal is more durable and less prone to damage. The pole is also decorated with various designs and patterns, such as flowers, leaves, animals, or religious motifs. These decorations not only make the pole more aesthetic, but also help balance its weight and improve its stability. The canopy is another crucial part of the parasol. It needs to be large enough to provide shade and shelter, yet lightweight enough to be carried easily. The canopy is usually made of fabric, such as cotton, linen, hemp, or jute, which are natural fibers that are readily available and easy to work with. The fabric is stretched over the bamboo ribs and secured with cords or tapes. The canopy is also colored with natural dyes, such as indigo, madder, turmeric, or chirongi, which give it a unique look and feel. The canopy can also have different shapes and sizes, such as round, oval, square, or octagonal, depending on the purpose and preference of the user. Some canopies are plain and simple, while others are adorned with intricate patterns and embroidery. And don't forget the base. A good parasol needs to have a stable base to prevent it from falling over or blowing away. The base is usually made of stone or metal, such as granite, marble, or iron. The base is placed at the bottom of the pole and acts as a counterweight to keep the parasol upright. The base can also be decorated with various designs and patterns, such as geometric, floral, or animal motifs. And finally, let's talk about the ornaments. Parasols are often decorated with various ornaments and accessories that add to their beauty and functionality. These ornaments can include tassels, fringes, beads, bells, ribbons, mirrors, or even lights. These ornaments not only make the parasol more attractive and festive, but also serve various purposes, such as keeping the canopy in place, preventing insects from entering, or even creating a pleasant sound. The monsoon continued to evolve and adapt to different cultures and contexts throughout history. It influenced other parts of the world, such as Southeast Asia and Africa, where similar types of umbrellas developed. It also survived the test of time, remaining relevant and useful even today. You can still see monsoons being used in India and other parts of the world, not only as a symbol of tradition and heritage, but also as a tool for shade and protection. I hope you enjoyed learning about the monsoon, one of the most fascinating and versatile types of umbrellas in the world. If you want to know more about the history, culture, and craftsmanship of monsoon umbrellas, I recommend you to visit some of the resources. When you think of an umbrella, what do you see? A simple handheld device to shelter yourself from sun or rain, an iconic symbol in children's fairy tales, or perhaps a means of anonymous transportation in dystopian futures. All these ideas and more can be found in the evolution of the umbrella. But there is one story that tends to get overlooked in discussions about this important invention, the Japanese umbrella. So today we look at the parasol as it evolved in the East, beginning with its ancient origins and running through various cultural touchstones before arriving at their impact on modern umbrellas. So grab your fanciest outfit, your finest parasol, and join us for the evolution of the umbrella, Part 5, the Japanese Begbasu. Though China is often credited as the birthplace of the umbrella, early examples of parasols were actually developed independently in Japan as far back as the 5th century. According to legend, an umbrella was created when a woman noticed a large leaf floating down from a tree during a walk. In that moment, she realized that such an item could be useful, and so she fashioned the first umbrella from paper. Of course, this story may not be entirely true, but it does serve as a fitting origin myth for an item that has gone on to play a significant role in Japanese culture. Early Japanese umbrellas were designed to protect the nobility from the sun and rain. They were made from oiled paper stretched over a bamboo frame, which could then be folded up for easy storage when not in use. Though they were initially used by all members of the upper class, umbrellas gradually became a symbol of female beauty. This trend started during the Heian period, 794-1185, when court ladies began using intricately decorated parasols as accessories while walking around gardens or attending special events. One such event was the famous Gion Matsuri, a religious festival held in July in Kyoto to honor the procession of gods from various shrines across the city. Held every year since 661, the festival includes a parade with many floats, each with its own distinct design and purpose. Many are elaborately decorated with sliding panels, and some feature enormous paper umbrellas that open like giant lotus flowers. These are known as yotosaka, large umbrellas that are held open by two people and traditionally decorated with hand-painted images of mythological scenes. They are especially popular at festivals because of their ability to instantly transform an area into a sacred space. While women used parasols as a symbol of feminine beauty, men would carry umbrellas to protect themselves from the elements. One example is the higasa, a type of umbrella that is still used in traditional Japanese gardens today. The higasa has a distinctive curved shape and is made of black pine branches bound together with straw rope, with a canopy made of oiled paper. Originally, they were used as walking umbrellas, but later evolved into a ceremonial tool used by monks and gardeners during tea ceremonies. While assisting the host in preparing matcha, the gardener will hold the high asa above their head as they gather pine needles. And during the actual ceremony, the host will hold the umbrella above their head as a form of quiet contemplation. Because the high asa is used exclusively with the matcha ceremony, only specially trained gardeners are allowed to use them. The use of umbrellas also had an impact on kabuki theater, a form of traditional Japanese drama that originated in the early 17th century. Kabuki was originally a dance-based performance art, but soon incorporated spoken dialogue, music, and elaborate costumes. Parasols were featured prominently in several plays, including the famous Soga Festival, a kabuki play based on the medieval epic The Tale of the Hike. It tells the story of the Soga brothers who seek revenge for their father's death at the hands of rival samurai. In one scene, a character named Suni, a young woman disguised as a male warrior, holds a parasol as she leads her horse during the battle. The parasol becomes an important symbol in the play, representing both Tsunayoshi's gender ambiguity and her strength as a warrior. Because of its prominent role, actors would carry parasols with them whenever they performed outside. When indoors, however, they were given special permission to use portable folding umbrellas. This privilege eventually extended beyond theaters and into everyday life. The introduction of folding umbrellas in Japan occurred during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868. While parasols were once considered a luxury item, the production of folding umbrellas became a specialized industry. Many families who produced paper umbrellas lived in the same district and had inherited the craft from their parents and grandparents. Folding umbrellas were not just functional, but also decorative. Some were made with colorful paper and intricate designs, while others were plain and practical. However, even the most basic umbrella was a symbol of status, representing the wealth and taste of its owner. Women would often receive parasols as gifts on special occasions, such as weddings or coming-of-age celebrations. During the Edo period, women's fashion included carrying a parasol with matching kimono patterns, further establishing their importance in social settings. Walking with an umbrella became a sign of feminine elegance, and was often depicted in paintings and woodblock prints. One example is a series of 12 woodblock prints by the artist Kitagawa Utamaro, titled 100 Aspects of Women. One of the prints in the series depicts a young woman holding a folding umbrella as she walks through a market. The image is not only a celebration of feminine beauty, but also a snapshot of everyday life in Edo period Japan. While the folding umbrella was gaining popularity, another type of parasol was being used by farmers, known as the gasa. These were simple and practical umbrellas made from straw or bamboo leaves. Unlike the folding umbrella, the gasha did not have a curved handle, but rather a straight one that could be tucked under the arm. Gasha were also much larger than folding umbrellas, and could be used to cover farm animals or even small boats. While not as elegant as their fashionable counterparts, Gasha were no less important to the rural population. By the late Edo period, several types of umbrellas had become ingrained in Japanese society. There were umbrellas for men and women, large ones for ceremonies, and small ones for everyday use. There were even umbrellas specifically designed for use while riding a rickshaw. With this wide variety, it's no wonder that umbrellas were such an important part of daily life in Japan. In the West, the umbrella started to evolve into something new during the Industrial Revolution. New technologies led to mass production of cheaper, more durable umbrellas made from metal and textiles. Meanwhile, in Japan, tradition continued to thrive. During the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912, when Japan began to modernize, the umbrella became a symbol of Japanese identity. Many artists continued to depict the umbrella as a symbol of feminine beauty, while others used it to evoke a sense of nostalgia for the old ways. This trend continued into the 20th century, with the parasol remaining an important part of traditional Japanese culture. For example, the parasol is featured prominently in the anime movie Spirited Away, set in the world of Japanese folklore. The main character, Chihiro, carries a red umbrella with her as she travels through the spirit world. The umbrella becomes a symbol of hope and resilience as Chihiro navigates the challenges she faces along the way. Today, the Japanese umbrella continues to be an important part of traditional culture. Umbrellas are still used in tea ceremonies, kabuki, theater, and other traditional arts. Additionally, the umbrella has become a symbol of Japan as a whole. Umbrellas are often used in Japanese gardens and can be seen in traditional paintings and woodblock prints. In fact, the image of the Japanese umbrella has become so iconic that it is often used as a motif in modern art. Contemporary artists continue to be inspired by the umbrella, using it as a symbol of Japanese culture and identity. While the Japanese umbrella may seem like a simple object, it has a rich history and cultural significance that goes back centuries. From its origins as a symbol of beauty to its role in traditional arts and culture, the Japanese umbrella has come to represent more than just a practical tool for protection from the elements. It is a symbol of Japanese identity and culture that continues to inspire and captivate people around the world. As for how it influenced modern umbrellas, well, that's complicated. Western umbrellas were already undergoing their own evolution during the Victorian era when James Henry Greatbatch invented the modern folding umbrella in 1852. By the early 20th century, the umbrella had become a common sight in cities around the world. The first half of the 20th century saw many improvements to the umbrella, including the invention of the telescopic pole, the button-operated opening mechanism, and the windproof design. Today, umbrellas are made from a variety of materials, including nylon, polyester, and cotton. The most common type of umbrella is the folding umbrella, which was invented in the early 19th century. Folding umbrellas are convenient because they can be folded up and stored away when not in use. They typically consist of a canopy made from a lightweight fabric such as nylon or polyester, which is attached to a frame made from aluminum or steel. The frame is connected to a handle, which can be made from a variety of materials such as plastic or wood. Umbrellas are primarily used for protection from the rain, but they can also be used to protect from the sun. Some umbrellas are even designed to protect from both the sun and the rain. Umbrellas can be opened and closed manually, or they can have a mechanism that allows them to be opened and closed with the push of a button. Some umbrellas are also equipped with an automatic opening and closing system. To learn more about the umbrella's role in Japanese culture, be sure to check out our previous videos on the topic. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Special thanks to our supporters for making episodes like this one possible. And to everyone, thank you for watching. We've explored how the umbrella was invented in ancient Egypt and how it traveled across Asia and Africa. And now we're going to trace its route into Europe. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue our journey through time and space to figure out how the umbrella evolved. We've seen how it started in Egypt, then moved through Mesopotamia and India before making its way to China. And now we're going to follow the umbrella as it leaves Africa and arrives in Europe for the first time. In this episode, we'll find out how the umbrella went from being an object of practicality to a symbol of wealth and status, at least for a little while. It was during the Middle Ages when the umbrella made its way into Europe with the Moors. But unlike in Asia, where it was adopted primarily for religious purposes, the umbrella's arrival in Europe was more about fashion. European architecture was dominated by large buildings that had very tall ceilings, which meant there wasn't much need for protection against direct sunlight. And so the umbrella didn't catch on right away. The climate in Europe is also much colder than in most parts of Asia. So keeping dry from rain wasn't as important as shielding oneself from the sun. But despite these obstacles, the umbrella did make some inroads, specifically among women who were looking for ways to cover up and stay modest. Back in those days, revealing too much skin was considered improper, and so many women started carrying parasols, which were basically small umbrellas that could be used as shade for only one person. This is also how the umbrella became a symbol of feminine beauty and allure. And we have art from the time period that shows us just how these parasols were used. In paintings like the Arnolfini portrait by Jan van Eyck, we see a woman holding a parasol over her head while walking outside. There are other paintings showing women reclining in chairs or lying down while holding parasols over their faces. It is interesting to note that the word parachute comes from the French word para, which means to protect. The parasol quickly became a popular accessory among the upper classes, and it wasn't long before they started appearing in art as well. As time went on, the parasol became bigger and heavier. Some were even mounted on wheels so that they could be pushed around. But the parasol wasn't the only type of umbrella being used in Europe at the time. There was also the garda, which was a larger umbrella that could shield multiple people from the sun. This type of umbrella was often carried by men and women of status, and it was sometimes decorated with elaborate designs. But despite their popularity, both types of umbrellas fell out of style during the Renaissance. One reason for this was that the Renaissance marked a renewed interest in classical Greek and Roman culture, and since umbrellas weren't used in those societies, they fell out of favor. Plus, the Renaissance brought about a lot of new artistic techniques that made painters less reliant on umbrellas as a way of shading their subjects. However, umbrellas would make a comeback during the next century. As we entered the 17th century, umbrellas were once again becoming popular in Europe. However, they were still mostly used by women as a way of protecting their beauty and modesty. This is reflected in the literature of the time as well. For example, in play Tartuffe, the character Elmire uses an umbrella to hide her face from the man she's trying to reject. Another literary work that features an umbrella prominently is Shakespeare's The Tempest. In this play, Miranda is sheltered under an umbrella by her father, Prospero, as he gives her a tour of the island they live on. Umbrellas were also featured in famous works of art from this period, such as Diego Los Meninas and Johannes Vermeer's Woman with a Parasol. During this time, umbrellas were still relatively uncommon among men, But that would change in the 18th century. Umbrellas started appearing more frequently in the streets of London, Paris, and other major European cities. One reason for this was that more people could afford them, since mass production had made them cheaper. Another reason was that they had become associated with power and status, as many government officials and wealthy businessmen started using them as a way of getting around town. But not everyone was happy about this development. There were many people who saw umbrellas as a threat to public order and safety. In London, there was even an anti-umbrella society formed to protest against the use of umbrellas. They felt that umbrellas were dangerous, blocking the way and poking people in the eye. Of course, this didn't stop the umbrella from becoming an iconic part of European culture. They were mentioned in literature, art, and even songs. One of the most famous songs about umbrellas is A Little Umbrella Went Into a Shop, which was published in 1843. The lyrics go like this: a little umbrella went into a shop, to buy a new handle. It broke with a snap. The shopkeeper said, "Pray don't be blue, for I can soon get for you a new handle for your umbrella." Throughout the 19th century, umbrellas continued to evolve. New materials were developed that made them lighter and stronger, and new designs made them more efficient at keeping their users dry. Perhaps the most important innovation came in 1852, when a British engineer named Jonas Hanway started carrying an umbrella with a collapsible metal frame. This invention allowed umbrellas to be folded up and carried more easily, making them even more popular. The umbrella also started to be used for other purposes besides keeping dry in the rain. For example, it was common for people to carry umbrellas when they were mourning someone who had died. This was because the umbrella could be turned inside out, exposing the black fabric underneath. Umbrellas were also used as a symbol of secrecy and discretion. People would often carry umbrellas when they were meeting someone in secret or when they needed to pass along a message. In the early 20th century, the umbrella reached its peak as a fashion accessory. This was due in part to the popularity of Hollywood movies, which often featured glamorous stars holding umbrellas. However, this would be the last time that umbrellas were widely used as a fashion accessory. The invention of the automobile and other forms of modern transportation meant that people didn't have to walk as much anymore. Plus, with the introduction of synthetic fabrics, umbrellas became more disposable and less of a luxury item. Nowadays, umbrellas aren't really considered a fashion statement, but they are still an important invention that helps us stay dry in the rain. In conclusion, the umbrella has a long and rich history. It first appeared in ancient Egypt and then spread to other parts of the world, including Europe. When it arrived in Europe, it was initially used as a parasol to protect women's beauty and modesty. But over time, it became a symbol of wealth and power. Umbrellas were used by everyone from aristocrats to government officials, and they even made an appearance in art, literature, and song. But as technology advanced, the umbrella became more functional and less fashionable. Today, it's just a simple tool that helps us stay dry in the rain. But it's important to remember that without the umbrella, we might not have had some of the great works of art and literature that we enjoy today. So what do you think? Did you learn anything new about umbrellas? How do you feel about umbrellas? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Most people don't know this, but for over a century, one style of umbrella reigned supreme in the rainiest city in the world. It was an iconic symbol of manliness, preparedness, and civility, and it looked like this. Umbrellas have been around since ancient times, with various cultures independently inventing them from different materials. But for most of history, they were seen as women's accessories, something to protect delicate ladies from getting wet in the rain, while men went about their business without a care in the world. But all that changed during the Industrial Revolution, when cities got crowded, dirty, and yes, wet. So today we're going to talk about how the umbrella became a mark of civility among Victorian men in London, and why every gentleman carried one. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Also, remember to show some love and hit that like button if you enjoy what you see. Lastly, stick around until the end because we have a special announcement. In the mid-19th century, London was the largest city in the world, with over 2 million people packed into just a few square miles. That's almost twice as many people as New York City today. There wasn't enough housing to go around, so entire neighborhoods consisted of nothing but slums. And these areas weren't just home to the destitute, but also to a thriving criminal underworld. Armed robberies were common, and there were even gangs whose sole purpose was to get drunk, beat up people, and generally cause trouble. But perhaps the greatest problem caused by all this overcrowding was a severe lack of sanitation. Most buildings didn't have indoor toilets, so the streets were used as public conveniences. This meant that the average Londoner had to navigate a minefield of human waste, while also trying not to inhale too deeply or get stabbed. In these conditions, staying dry was a major challenge. Luckily for the people of London, the Industrial Revolution had given birth to another innovation besides filthy factories and deadly working conditions. Cheap, sturdy cotton umbrellas became a practical accessory for anyone who didn't want to be soaked to the bone every time they left their house. At first, they were equally popular with men and women. But as the 19th century wore on, the umbrella started to take on a more distinctly masculine image. Part of this was due to how umbrellas were marketed to the two sexes. For women, advertisements touted the umbrella's ability to keep their hair dry, therefore ensuring that it would stay fashionable and voluminous. Men, on the other hand, were told that carrying an umbrella was a sign of good character, an indicator that they were caring, thoughtful, and prepared. There was even a popular song at the time called "A Man Without a Plan is Like a Ship Without a Sail," which glorified the male umbrella carrier as being suave, debonair, and always ready for action. Another reason for the shift was simple practicality. As women's fashion dictated, they wear long, full skirts that made it difficult for them to move around. Therefore, it made no sense for them to carry an umbrella that could easily turn inside out or block their view. Men, on the other hand, usually wore simple suits with trousers that allowed for a full range of motion. It was easier for them to carry an umbrella that was tall and slim, taking up minimal space and leaving their hands free to handle whatever situation they encountered. But perhaps the main reason for the popularity of the gentleman's umbrella was the same thing that makes today's top financial district in London, the City of London, one of the quietest places in the city. And no, it's not because everyone is busy working. You see, it was considered rude to open an umbrella inside. Not only did it attract unwanted attention, but it was also seen as a waste of everyone's time. Gentlemen would take turns opening their umbrellas slowly and carefully, until finally, someone would break the silence by opening their umbrella. That was the cue for everyone else to follow suit. And, in a matter of seconds, a crowded room would erupt into a flurry of activity, as dozens of umbrellas were opened simultaneously. This was important because it was customary for businessmen to meet potential investors in a hotel lobby or at a friend's office before heading off together to inspect a new factory or railway line. If you showed up without an umbrella, not only did you risk getting drenched in the rain, But you would also disrupt the routine by forcing everyone else to wait while you opened your umbrella. It was a major faux pas and would ruin any chance of securing funding for your new business venture. Therefore, it was in every man's best interest to join the trend and buy one of these bulky black umbrellas. But having one wasn't enough. Gentlemen were expected to open and close their umbrellas with panache. There was a distinct way to open and close your umbrella that denoted your social class. A gentleman never opened his umbrella in a public place unless absolutely necessary. He would only do it in private, such as inside his home or office. Once outside, he would hold his umbrella in his left hand, its tip pointing towards the ground, and gently open it with his right hand. To close the umbrella, he would reverse the process, making sure to guide the tip of the umbrella down with his left hand to avoid stabbing anyone. A well-to-do gentleman would have his umbrella open and closed in a matter of seconds, a display of wealth that showed he had the leisure time to master such a useless skill. Those who couldn't afford a servant might not have mastered the art of umbrella etiquette, but they would still carry one just in case. Since they were relatively inexpensive, the umbrella became known as the working man's parasol, a cheap form of protection that could save you from both the rain and the perils of the street. Some companies even paid their workers umbrella insurance, covering the cost of a new one if it broke, while the wealthy bought high-quality umbrellas that could last for years. The poor were forced to replace theirs often. Umbrellas were typically made from steel or wood, which could be flimsy and prone to breaking. That's why the umbrella industry boomed in London during this time, producing thousands of these fragile devices every year. Many were mass-produced and flimsy, only lasting for a few months before needing to be replaced. The umbrella became so ingrained in everyday life that there were even police tasked with keeping order among umbrella carriers. These men, called umbrella menders, were responsible for confiscating umbrellas from those who broke the rules. Etiquette, such as opening them inside or leaving them out at night, might sound ridiculous to us today, but it was a serious offense back then. Menders would line up outside pubs and theaters, waiting for patrons to leave so they could confiscate their umbrellas and return them to their owners. If an umbrella wasn't claimed within 3 months, the mender could keep it. By the late 19th century, Londoners were opening and closing their umbrellas so proficiently that it became a novelty act. 2 men even joined forces to perform what they called the umbrella ballet, wowing audiences with their perfectly synchronized opening and closing of their umbrellas. Their routine became so popular that it was performed in front of Queen Victoria herself. But the tradition didn't last forever. By the 20th century, London's streets had been paved, and sewers had been installed, making it less of a muddy, smelly mess. Plus, the advent of the foldable umbrella freed up men's hands to carry briefcases and other items needed in the fast-paced world of finance. Eventually, umbrellas became something people only carried if it was literally raining cats and dogs. Today, many people don't even own one. Hopefully you enjoyed learning about the bizarre world of Victorian men's fashion. Now it's time for you to make your voice heard. Comment below with the topic you'd like to see us cover next. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content. Thank you for watching. Stay classy, San Diego. From the Chinese invention of the umbrella as a sunshade to its evolution into a portable rain shield and finally its transformation into a fashion accessory, the umbrella has come a long way. But while it's now a common sight on city streets, there was a time when carrying an open umbrella indoors or not knowing how to properly close one could get you shunned from polite society. The umbrella went from being a simple tool to a symbol of wealth, power, and eventually gender roles. and those that used them had to be very aware of their surroundings to avoid accidentally insulting someone. So let's go back in time to find out what would happen if you forgot your umbrella on a rainy day. Before we jump into the do's and don'ts of using an umbrella, let's take a look at how these handy devices evolved. Early umbrellas were made of animal skins, stretched over wooden frames, and were used by ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, Persians, and Chinese. These umbrellas were large and heavy, and were mostly used as sunshades, carried by servants or slaves. The Chinese, however, adapted the umbrella for use during rain and incorporated it into their culture. During the Shang and Zhou dynasties, only nobles and royalty were allowed to carry umbrellas, and they became symbols of status and power. In fact, carrying an umbrella at all was a privilege reserved for the upper classes until the 17th century, when lighter materials and collapsible designs made them more accessible to the general public. In Europe, umbrellas were initially seen as a feminine accessory and were mainly used by wealthy women to protect their elaborate hairstyles from getting wet. Men who used umbrellas were often ridiculed and seen as effeminate. However, this began to change during the Industrial Revolution, when men started working in factories and offices and needed a way to stay dry during their commutes. By the 20th century, umbrellas were commonplace and were seen as a practical accessory for everyone. Today, umbrellas are available in a wide range of designs and styles to suit every taste and budget. From compact pocket-sized ones to large golf umbrellas, there's an umbrella for everyone. They come in various materials, including nylon, polyester, cotton, and rayon, and feature different opening and closing mechanisms, such as manual, automatic, and even voice-activated. Umbrellas have gone from being a simple tool to a fashion statement, reflecting changing attitudes towards gender roles and functionality. They continue to evolve with new features such as UV protection, wind resistance, and smart technology, ensuring that we stay dry and stylish in any weather. Now let's jump into the world of early 19th century London, where a young woman named Amelia is out for an afternoon stroll with her two friends. Suddenly, dark clouds gather overhead and rain begins to pour down. The three friends, each carrying a parasol, hurry to find shelter. But there's a problem. The nearest shop awning is small and can only fit two people, who should step aside for the other. Our three ladies have been taught the proper etiquette for such situations. The eldest, Miss Pinkerton, stands in front, holding her head high. Her parasol, a symbol of her status, is kept open as she moves closer to the shop. But before she can enter, a man approaches. He's also seeking shelter, but his presence makes Miss Pinkerton uneasy. Her younger companion, Miss Bennet, whispers to her, reminding her of the importance of acting ladylike. But how did umbrellas factor into these unspoken rules of conduct? For women, the rules surrounding parasol usage were complex and dictated by strict social norms. When it came to opening and closing their parasols, they had to be mindful of their surroundings and the company they kept. Opening a parasol indoors or in a confined space was considered extremely rude and could cause offense. Therefore, women were expected to wait until they were outside and away from others, before opening their parasols to shield themselves from the sun. This also applied to closing their parasols, which they had to do before re-entering a building or joining a gathering. Failure to follow these rules could result in being labeled as ill-mannered and ostracized from polite society. When it rained, the rules were slightly different. Women could keep their parasols open while walking in the rain, but they had to make sure not to inconvenience others. They shouldn't block the way or impede the progress of pedestrians or traffic. If a gentleman approached, they were expected to halt and close their parasols until he passed. This was a courtesy extended to men as a sign of respect and deference. Additionally, women were expected to hold their parasols at a certain angle to avoid blocking the view of others. They were to tilt the parasol upwards, allowing passers-by to see around them. This consideration ensured that everyone could navigate the streets without obstruction. Men also had their own set of rules to follow when it came to umbrellas, although they were not as stringent as those for women. Men were generally expected to offer their umbrellas to ladies, whether they were acquaintances or strangers. It was considered polite to approach a lady with an umbrella and ask if they would like to share it, offering to hold it over her head or hold both umbrellas with one arm while using the other to escort her to her destination. This custom was a testament to the chivalrous nature of men in Victorian England, where they were expected to display gallantry and consideration towards women. But what happened if a gentleman forgot his umbrella on a rainy day? Well, the consequences could vary depending on the situation and his social standing. In a more light-hearted sense, he might face teasing or ridicule from his friends and peers for being caught without an essential accessory. After all, having an umbrella was a sign of preparedness and attention to detail, and forgetting one could be seen as a lapse in judgment. However, in a more serious vein, a man who forgot his umbrella and sought shelter under a woman's parasol without offering to buy one for her or hold both umbrellas could be perceived as presumptuous and ill-bred. It was crucial for gentlemen to be equipped not only with an umbrella, but also with the social graces to use it appropriately. And when it came to opening and closing an umbrella, there was a specific etiquette to follow. Gentlemen were expected to hold their umbrellas by the handle, close to the top, when opening them. They should do so gracefully and with precision, avoiding any sudden movements or forceful jerks. Similarly, closing an umbrella required finesse. They should close it slowly and steadily, taking care not to stab anyone or damage property. Rushing or slamming the umbrella shut was considered rude and careless. But what if a gentleman had two ladies to escort, both with their own parasols? In this scenario, the gentleman was expected to exhibit his social prowess and maintain composure. He would politely ask the ladies if they would like to share an umbrella, offering to hold one parasol for each of them simultaneously. This required a certain level of skill and balance, as well as an awareness of the lady's preferences. If one lady declined, he would need to adjust accordingly and either hold both umbrellas for the other or offer his arm for support. Such situations tested a gentleman's ability to navigate the complexities of social interactions and uphold the standards of etiquette. And then there were the special rules for religious buildings. When entering a church or a place of worship, it was customary for both men and women to close their umbrellas and leave them at the entrance. This practice was rooted in respect for the sacred space and was a way to show reverence during prayer or religious services. It also helped to avoid any distractions caused by the size or color of the umbrella within the church. But what if a man found himself sharing an umbrella with a woman, and it began to rain heavily? In such a situation, the man should have been prepared to make a quick decision and adapt accordingly. If he was a gentleman, he would consider the comfort and safety of the woman he was sharing the umbrella with. Depending on the intensity of the rain and the closeness of their proximity, he might choose to walk on the outer side of the sidewalk, shielding the woman from the direct impact of the rain. On the other hand, if the rain was particularly heavy and visibility was poor, he might decide to cross the street and walk on the opposite side, ensuring that the woman he was with remained dry and visible. Ultimately, the man sharing the umbrella would need to balance his own well-being with the needs of the woman and exercise discretion in his actions. Hopefully, Now you know just how important your brolly is to the overall ensemble. What would you do if you forgot your umbrella on a rainy day? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical tales. When you think of an umbrella, you may picture a quick, simple object, something that shields you from sun or rain for a few minutes at a time. It's rarely something you would take the time to appreciate. And yet, there is a long history of beauty, practicality, and quiet artistry behind each one. Umbrellas have been around for thousands of years, but their modern form was established in Europe during the 17th century. Back then, they were strictly a luxury item carried by the wealthy. As such, the umbrellas were often elaborate affairs with decorative handles made of wood, ivory, or metal, and expansive silk canopies. Even in those days, some people had the good sense to notice how beautiful these accessories could be. One French author wrote, "An elegant umbrella in fine weather is as pretty a thing as one could wish to see." As umbrellas evolved throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, so did the tools needed to make them. Craftspeople started to rely less on hand tools and more on power looms for weaving the fabric and specialized sewing. Machines for putting the finishing touches on the canopy, but many steps still required human hands, from cutting the cane for the frame to smoothing and shaping the wooden handle. This era also saw the rise of the first mass production techniques. Umbrellas became more affordable, though they were still considered a middle-class luxury. By the early 20th century, umbrellas had become a common sight on city streets. Their design had also shifted to become more compact, a necessity as people started carrying them around in pockets or small bags. In fact, some umbrellas were designed to look like walking sticks, allowing the user to carry them without drawing attention. But this era of umbrella making was short-lived. Soon, the world would change forever. Today, the quiet art of umbrella making has almost disappeared. Modern materials like fiberglass and steel have replaced the natural materials of yesteryear, and mass production means that most umbrellas are assembled by machines. Only a handful of workshops still produce high-end umbrellas by hand. So, while we have lost the ability to make these objects ourselves, we can still find beauty in the work of those who have kept this tradition alive. For example, the London-based company Fulton Umbrellas, which has been around since 1883. Like many other umbrella makers, Fulton specializes in high-end custom umbrellas for the wealthy, celebrities, and anyone else who can afford their products. Each umbrella is handmade with painstaking attention to detail. A single craftsman can make up to 6 umbrellas per day, which is lucky because Fulton sells about 150,000 umbrellas each year. Each umbrella comes with its own unique combination of colors, patterns, and materials, meaning no two are exactly alike. Though the company does have a range of standard designs for customers to choose from, Fulton's workshop is filled with all the tools and materials needed to put together an umbrella, including dozens of different types of wood, wax, canvas, thread, glue, and paint. Many of these materials might seem surprising to anyone who has ever assembled a cheap umbrella. After all, the cheapest models are made entirely of metal and plastic parts. But even though modern materials are lighter and cheaper, they aren't always as durable. That's why Fulton and other high-end umbrella makers use traditional materials like wood, canvas, and leather. These components are more expensive, but they are also higher quality and can last for decades. Plus, there is a certain elegance to the look and feel of these materials that you just couldn't get with plastic or metal. The process of making a wooden handle takes several steps. First, Fulton's employees cut down long, thin pieces of wood into smaller sections. They then smooth out the edges and drill holes near the top and bottom. Next, the pieces are ready to be shaped, which is done using a variety of tools. Some handles are turned on a lathe, while others are simply sanded and carved by hand. This is where a lot of skill and patience is required. Each piece is unique and must be shaped carefully to ensure it is both sturdy and attractive. Once the handle is complete, it is time to add some finishing touches. Sometimes this means staining or painting the wood. Other times it involves wrapping the handle in leather or other material. Finally, the handle is attached to the rest of the umbrella using glue and screws. Now that the handle is complete, it's time to put together the rest of the umbrella. First, the umbrella's frame is assembled. Like the handle, the frame is made up of several parts that must be put together carefully to ensure they are sturdy and strong. Once the frame is complete, it's time to attach the canopy. This is done by hand, stitch by stitch. The canopy is made of multiple pieces of fabric that are sewn together to create a water-resistant seal. This requires precision and care to ensure that the canopy is both functional and attractive. Finally, the umbrella is complete. From start to finish, it can take several days to make a single umbrella. It's a time-consuming process that requires skill, patience, and attention to detail. But the end result is worth it. A handmade umbrella is not just an everyday object. It's a work of art that can be enjoyed for years to come. As we continue to move through the 21st century, it seems unlikely that the quiet art of umbrella making will disappear anytime soon. Handmade umbrellas are still in demand, and there are plenty of people who are passionate about keeping this tradition alive. Besides, there's something special about holding an umbrella that you know was made by hand. It's a connection to the past and a reminder of the importance of craftsmanship in our everyday lives. Thank you for watching this episode of The Quiet Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button. We've made hundreds of videos over the past decade and have been able to release them for free because of the support of viewers like you. If you would like to help us make more videos in the future, please consider becoming a patron. Your support will help us continue to explore the quiet arts and bring them to a wider audience. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, stay curious. 9. The persistence of umbrellas. Why they have survived through the ages and what role they play in our everyday lives. Why do we still carry them? What purpose do they serve? And how are they portrayed in art? You'll find out today on this channel. Hi, it's me, No. 7. A brief history. From ancient Egypt to the French Revolution, the parasol was primarily an elegant shade for sun protection. It was considered feminine. Men did not use it. However, from the 16th century onwards, when the umbrella became a more practical tool against rain, it started to be seen as masculine. In the early 20th century, the umbrella finally evolved into a compact, portable device that could be easily carried by anyone, regardless of gender. Today, umbrellas are a common sight on city streets. And now, let's look at how they were portrayed in the past. No. 8. Umbrellas in paintings. The earliest known depiction of an umbrella is found in an ancient Egyptian tomb from 1400 BC. The painting shows a woman holding a parasol over the head of a male figure. In those days, only the wealthy could afford such luxury items as umbrellas. It was a symbol of wealth, power, and status. From Asia, the umbrella traveled to Greece and Rome, where it was used mainly for shading purposes. During the Renaissance, it made its way to Europe via Arab traders. It was first mentioned in European literature by the Roman poet Martial in his epigrams. In his poem, he describes a woman walking alone in the rain without an umbrella. She looks sad and lonely. This is one of the first examples of the umbrella as a symbol of solitude. In 1598, an Italian painter named Bronzino created a portrait of a young man named Francesco de' Medici. He's holding an open umbrella over his head while standing next to a woman. The painting was titled Il Vizio Capital 3, Ubriaco, which translates to the deadly sin of gluttony. The artist chose to personify gluttony as a man with an umbrella, because at the time umbrellas were primarily associated with wealth and excess. Another famous painting featuring an umbrella is Monet's A Rainy Day. It depicts two men strolling through a Paris street during a light rain. One of them holds a black umbrella over both their heads. The painting is notable for its accurate depiction of Parisian street life, and the umbrella plays an important role in creating a sense of atmosphere. It also symbolizes the loneliness of the main character. He's alone in the bustling city, lost in his thoughts. One of the most iconic images of an umbrella in painting is Edward Hopper's 1942 work, New York Corner. It shows a solitary woman standing on the corner of a street, holding an open umbrella over her head. The building behind her is tall and imposing, blocking out the sky. The image is striking in its simplicity and starkness, yet it's also deeply moving in its portrayal of human isolation and resilience. Spanish painter Salvador Dali's 1937 masterpiece, The Elephants, features elephants with long trunks carrying large umbrellas on their tusks. The elephants symbolize strength and power, while the umbrellas represent fragility and ephemerality. The overall effect is one of dreamlike surrealism, typical of Dali's work. Yayoi Kusama's Pumpkin and Umbrella is a large-scale sculpture made of stainless steel. It consists of a giant pumpkin with a wide smile and two small hands holding an open umbrella. The work is part of Kusama's larger series of pumpkin sculptures, which she has been making since the 1990s. Pumpkins are a recurring motif in Kusama's art, and they often appear in unexpected places. 9. Umbrellas in poetry and novels. The umbrella, as a symbol of solitude, is also found in poetry. In John Keats's poem To a Young Lady of My Acquaintance, the speaker compares himself to a fallen leaf that's being blown about by the wind. He also uses the image of an umbrella to convey his feelings of helplessness and isolation. The umbrella serves as a metaphor for the fragile nature of human happiness and the inevitability of change. In W.B. Yeats's poem, The Stolen Child, the young protagonist runs away from home and is never seen again. The poem is set in Ireland, and there's a lot of imagery related to nature and the outdoors. The child's laughter echoes through the trees, and the sound of a distant drum suggests the presence of fairies or other supernatural beings. As the poem progresses, the tone becomes more ominous, and the speaker warns that the child has been stolen away by the fairies. The last stanza is particularly haunting and memorable. It begins with the line, "and all the fairies in the west," which creates a sense of mystery and enchantment. The fairies are said to live in the west, and their presence here suggests that the child has entered the realm of the supernatural. The poem ends with the line, "He is gone now, but we shall not forget him, but rather remember him as a child who laughed and played in the fields and was taken by the fairies." Overall, the poem is a powerful meditation on the themes of childhood, innocence, and the power of nature. Umberto Eco's novel, The Name of the Rose, features an umbrella as a symbol of knowledge and enlightenment. In the story, an Italian monk named William of Baskerville travels to a northern Italian monastery in the 14th century. The novel is set in the Middle Ages, and there's a lot of intrigue and suspense as William investigates a series of mysterious deaths. One of the characters, a young apprentice monk named Adso von Melk, is fascinated by the world around him, and he asks William many questions about everything from astronomy to alchemy. William encourages Adso's curiosity and sees him as a potential successor. At one point, William gives Adso an umbrella and tells him that it represents the power of knowledge. He says, "An umbrella keeps the sun from beating down on you, just as knowledge can protect you from ignorance and darkness." This is one of the central themes of the novel, the importance of pursuing knowledge and the dangers of ignorance. Number 10. The evolution of umbrellas. When and why did the umbrella first appear? Where did it come from, and why did it evolve into the shape we know today? Umbrellas are believed to have originated in Egypt as far back as 3500 BC. Early umbrellas were made from palm leaves or papyrus reeds and were used as sunshades. They were mostly used by pharaohs and other members of the ruling class as a symbol of their power and wealth. During the Middle Ages, umbrellas were primarily used as sunshades and were often carried by women. Men typically used walking sticks or canes. Umbrellas were also used as a symbol of authority and power, often carried by royalty and high-ranking officials. However, the umbrella's role began to change during the 16th and 17th centuries as people started to use them for protection from rain as well. In the 18th century, Jonas Hanway, an English traveller, is credited with popularizing the use of men's umbrellas. He was mocked and ridiculed at first, but eventually his peers started to adopt the accessory. In the 19th century, the umbrella became a common sight on the streets of London and Paris. Samuel Fox, an English inventor, patented the first steel-ribbed umbrella in 1852, which helped to make umbrellas more durable and practical. Today, umbrellas are a ubiquitous sight on city streets, used by people of all social classes and genders. They're an essential accessory for anyone who wants to stay dry in the rain or cool in the sun. Despite their practicality, umbrellas can also be stylish and fashionable, with a wide variety of designs and styles to choose from. In conclusion, the umbrella has a long and fascinating history, evolving from a symbol of wealth and power to a practical tool for everyday use. Its evolution reflects changing attitudes towards gender roles and social norms, as well as technological advancements that have made it more durable and accessible. From ancient Egypt to the modern day, the umbrella has remained an enduring symbol of humanity's ingenuity and ability to adapt to the challenges of the natural world. What are your thoughts on today's topic? What umbrella memories do you have? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. All the references used are added in the description box. Thanks for watching. See you next time. The first thing that comes to mind when you think of rainy days are probably dark skies and gloomy weather. However, for some people around the world, it's also the time of day they look forward to the most. The sound of pitter-patters on rooftops brings with it a certain charm that bright, sunny days can't compare to. There's just something comforting about it. And if you agree, then this video is for you. It's time we celebrate the beauty of rainy days with our favorite rainy day essentials: raincoats and umbrellas. Umbrellas have been an essential part of our lives since their invention thousands of years ago. They have come in all shapes and forms, from simple wooden sticks with animal skins to modern-day compact beauties. But what would life be like without them? In this episode of the Infographics Show, we'll take a look at how umbrellas have changed the way we live, work, and play. Stay tuned till the end, because there are some facts about this everyday item that you might not know. Also, stick around to learn about our new project coming soon, Evolution of the Umbrella. Before we dive into how umbrellas have impacted our daily routines, Let's take a quick trip down memory lane and explore their fascinating history. The earliest evidence of umbrellas dates back to ancient Egypt around 3000 BC, where umbrellas were used primarily as sunshades by the wealthy elite. These umbrellas were made from papyrus reeds or palm wood and covered in linen or cotton. During the 12th century, umbrellas became more popular in China, where they were used as a symbol of wealth and power. Chinese umbrellas were often made from silk and decorated with intricate hand-painted designs. Umbrellas eventually made their way to Europe in the 16th century, but they didn't catch on immediately. For many years, umbrellas were seen as feminine accessories and were mostly used by women. However, this would soon change. In the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution led to the mass production of umbrellas, making them more affordable and accessible to the general public. One of the most significant innovations came in 1852, when an English inventor named Jonas Hanway started carrying a folding umbrella. This invention allowed umbrellas to be more portable and convenient, leading to their widespread adoption. Another breakthrough occurred in 1924 when the Swedish engineer Gustaf Thulin invented the telescopic umbrella. Unlike traditional umbrellas that opened and closed manually, the telescopic umbrella could be opened and closed automatically with a simple twist of the wrist. This innovation made umbrellas even more popular and practical. Today, umbrellas come in various designs and materials, from classic golf umbrellas to compact travel umbrellas. No matter the type, umbrellas have become an indispensable part of our daily lives, providing us with much-needed protection from the elements. Rainy day rituals. Umbrellas have become an integral part of our daily routines, especially on those rainy days that make you want to stay indoors. Whether you're a student rushing to school or an office worker heading to work, having an umbrella handy can make all the difference in staying dry and comfortable. School children have become accustomed to carrying small umbrellas in their backpacks, which they open up on their way home from school to shield themselves from the rain. This has become a familiar sight on school days, especially during the monsoon season. Similarly, office workers often find themselves dashing out into the rain during their lunch breaks or after work. With an umbrella in hand, they navigate the city streets, sometimes even braving heavy downpours to get home. And what would a rainy day be without the sound of tapping umbrellas on pavement? As each drop hits the concrete, it creates a unique rhythm that's both soothing and melancholic. When you listen closely, you realize that every city street has its own melody, composed by the collective umbrellas dancing on the wet pavement. For some, rainy days are synonymous with cozy coffee shops and warm drinks. Imagine this: you sitting by the window of a quaint coffee shop, sipping a hot chocolate while watching the rain fall outside. In such moments, umbrellas become more than just a tool to keep you dry. They become a portal to a different world. Through the glass window, you see the umbrellas dotting the landscape outside, each one telling a silent story of the person holding it. There's the businessman in a hurry, the couple strolling hand in hand, and the lone walker lost in thought. Each person has their own reason for being out in the rain, each finding solace and beauty in the moment. And then there are those who don't mind getting wet. For some, the rain is a welcome change, a chance to escape the monotony of everyday life. They dance in the puddles, letting the water wash away their worries and cares. For them, an umbrella is just an unnecessary obstruction, a barrier between them and the refreshing rain. In these moments, the streets become a playground, the rain a shared experience that unites everyone in a sense of childlike wonder. Now that we've explored some of the ways umbrellas impact our daily routines, let's take a closer look at how these seemingly simple objects have shaped our habits and behaviors. From the tilt of our heads to the length of our strides. Umbrellas have influenced us in ways we may not even realize. One way umbrellas have affected us is our posture. When we hold an umbrella over our heads, it naturally causes us to tilt our heads back to shield our faces from the rain. Over time, this habit has resulted in a slight shift in our posture, making us more prone to developing neck and back problems. For example, studies have shown that people who use umbrellas regularly are more likely to suffer from chronic neck pain. Additionally, the weight of the umbrella can cause us to walk in a more slouched position, putting extra strain on our shoulders and spine. But umbrellas haven't just affected our physical posture, they've also influenced the way we interact with our surroundings. When we walk with an umbrella, we tend to take shorter, slower steps to prevent the umbrella from hitting our legs or getting caught on objects. This can have an impact on how we perceive the world around us, making it seem smaller and more confined. For example, when we walk with an umbrella in crowded areas, we may feel more vulnerable and exposed, leading to feelings of claustrophobia or anxiety. On the other hand, when we walk without an umbrella, we're more likely to be aware of our surroundings and take in the sights and sounds of the city. We can appreciate the beauty of the rain, the fresh scent of the wet pavement, and the vibrant colors of the buildings around us. This increased sense of awareness can lead to a more mindful and enjoyable walking experience. So, the next time you find yourself rushing through a crowded street with an umbrella in your hand, take a moment to appreciate the subtle ways in which this everyday object has affected you. From the tilt of your head to the length of your stride, your umbrella has shaped you in ways you may not have realized. So next time you look up at the sky on a rainy day, remember to also look inward and reflect on how this humble object has shaped you in ways both big and small. Interesting facts about umbrellas. Now that we've explored how umbrellas have affected our daily routines, let's take a break from the practical and delve into some fun facts about these iconic objects. You may be surprised by what you learn. Did you know that the world's largest umbrella was designed by a German artist named Klaus Litzius in 2014? It covered an area of 17,600 square meters and featured a colorful mosaic pattern. Talk about a shade with a view. Another fascinating fact is that Japan has a unique umbrella culture. In Japanese culture, umbrellas are not only used for protection from the rain, but also as a symbol of hospitality and respect. For example, it's customary to carry an umbrella when visiting someone's home. And even young children are taught to walk backwards when holding an umbrella for an elder. How thoughtful is that? India, too, has a rich umbrella tradition. The colorful umbrellas used by locals in Rajasthan and other parts of India are not only beautiful to look at, but also serve a practical purpose. The umbrellas are often made from locally sourced materials, like cotton and bamboo, and feature intricate, hand-painted designs that reflect the local culture and traditions. But it's not just India and Japan that have unique umbrella customs. In China, umbrellas are often used during the Qingming festival, a time when families pay respects to their ancestors. During this festival, people carry paper umbrellas decorated with calligraphy and poetry, which symbolize remembrance and respect for their elders. We hope you enjoyed this journey through the world of umbrellas and learned a few interesting facts along the way. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos about everyday items and their impact on our lives. And as you wait for our next video, why not grab an umbrella and go for a walk in the rain? Who knows what interesting sights and sounds you might discover? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments below. It's impossible to imagine life in a big city without them. The ubiquitous black disc held tightly under one arm as people navigate busy streets or public transit. They can be seen everywhere. But do we really know how they got here? Because it turns out that one of the most commonplace objects in the world has an unexpectedly fascinating history. That's right, today we are looking at the umbrella. To start, let's take a look at where the umbrella came from and how it evolved over time to become the everyday accessory that we know and love today. And since there are plenty of umbrellas to choose from, I thought we would focus on one type specifically, the folding umbrella, the one most commonly found in pockets and backpacks. After all, it is convenient and lightweight. It just folds up and fits in your bag until you need it. But before we get into how this design revolutionized the umbrella, let's go back to the very beginning, all the way to ancient Egypt around 3400 BC. Some of the earliest known examples of umbrellas were used by the Egyptians as sunshades during their hot days. These early umbrellas were simple affairs, consisting of a canopy attached to a wooden or metal pole. But over the centuries, the design remained relatively unchanged. Then, in the 11th century, a new type of umbrella emerged in China. This umbrella featured a curved handle and a canopy made of silk or cotton, which could be folded up when not in use. This design was practical and elegant, so it quickly became popular among the Chinese nobility. Eventually, this umbrella design spread to other parts of Asia, including India, where it was used by both men and women as a symbol of wealth and status. In Europe, however, umbrellas were still largely associated with women, and were often used as a fashion accessory rather than a functional item. But all of that would change in the 17th century when Jonas Hanway, a British traveller, began carrying an umbrella to protect himself from the rain while on the road. Hanway was an unconventional man who was already somewhat of a celebrity due to his unusual habit of smoking Turkish cigarettes. But his adoption of the umbrella caused quite a stir. People made fun of him for using such a feminine accessory, but he didn't care. He found the umbrella to be so useful that he continued to carry one despite the ridicule. Gradually, other men began to follow suit, and the umbrella started to shed its feminine image. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, umbrellas continued to evolve, with new features being added to improve their functionality and aesthetics. Umbrellas with telescopic handles were invented, allowing users to adjust the length of the pole. Umbrellas with curved ribs were also developed, providing more coverage from the sun or rain. By the end of the 19th century, umbrellas had become a common sight on the streets of London, Paris, and other European cities. But despite their popularity, umbrellas were still seen as somewhat cumbersome and impractical, especially when not in use. They took up a lot of space and could be difficult to carry around. Enter the 20th century and modern materials and a new concept that would change everything. The year was 1950 and the place was New York City. As the story goes, two engineers, two brothers named Reed and Alan Small, were sitting in their office trying to come up with a new product idea. They had been working in the metal industry for years, but they wanted to come up with something fresh and innovative. Then it hit them. Why not create an umbrella that could be easily folded and unfolded with just one hand? They believed that such an umbrella would be perfect for busy New Yorkers who needed a quick and easy way to protect themselves from the rain or shine. And so the compact umbrella was born. The Smiths' invention consisted of a lightweight metal frame that could be easily folded up and stored in a small carrying case. This design was revolutionary and set them apart from the bulky umbrellas that were on the market. The Smiths called their invention the auto open and close one, because you could open and close the umbrella automatically with just one hand. And the name stuck. It was marketed as the One Umbrella. Initially, the Smiths Company produced only 8 different models of umbrellas. But they quickly expanded their product line to include a variety of colors and patterns. At first, the Smiths sold the umbrellas door to door, but soon major department stores started to carry them as well. Within a few years, the compact umbrella had become a must-have accessory for New Yorkers. It was small enough to fit in a pocket or purse, making it incredibly convenient to carry around. Plus, it opened and closed so easily that it was hard to believe that anyone would want to use anything else. In 1969, the company was sold to another firm, but the compact umbrella remained a beloved product for decades. And while many companies now produce similar designs, the original patent has long since expired, meaning that others can make similar products. Over the years, different brands have put their own spin on the design. Some feature windproof technology to withstand strong gusts, while others have ergonomic handles for added comfort. Regardless, the basic concept remains the same. So why did this simple invention become so popular? For starters, it was extremely convenient. No more struggling with a bulky umbrella that refused to fold properly, or taking up valuable space in your bag with a large, impractical canopy. The compact umbrella was lightweight and portable, fitting easily into a pocket or purse and weighing next to nothing. This meant that you could carry it with you at all times without even realizing it was there. Then there was the ease of use. Opening and closing the umbrella required just one hand, making it a breeze to use even when you were in a hurry. No more fumbling around, trying to figure out which way to push or pull. Just one simple action, and you were ready to go. In addition, the compact umbrella was durable and long-lasting. It was made from high-quality materials that could withstand years of use, which meant that you didn't have to keep buying new ones. It was an investment that paid off in the long run. But perhaps the greatest appeal of the compact umbrella was its versatility. It was not just for rainy days. Thanks to its lightweight construction, the compact umbrella was also useful on sunny days. You could use it to shield yourself from the sun's rays, or to provide shade for your children or pets. It was an essential accessory for any outdoor activity, whether you were going for a walk, hiking, or having a picnic. In recent years, umbrellas have taken on a new significance. They have become a symbol of urban life. The iconic black disc held tightly under one arm as people navigate busy city streets or public transit. The compact umbrella has become a quiet, indispensable part of our lives. Its humble beginnings in a small workshop in New York seem like a distant memory, as it now graces the hands of millions around the world. If you are one of the millions of people who carry a compact umbrella every day, take a moment to appreciate the ingenuity of its design. It may seem like a simple, everyday object, but it is the result of countless hours of work and dedication. From the first crude umbrellas of ancient Egypt to the modern marvels we have today, each step in the evolution of the umbrella has brought us closer to a more convenient and stylish way of life. The compact umbrella is not just a tool to shield us from the elements. It is a testament to human ingenuity and our never-ending quest for simplicity and practicality. As you hold your umbrella over your head, take a moment to appreciate the journey it has taken to get there. From the hands of the first weavers in ancient China to the engineers of modern-day Japan, each person has contributed to creating this essential part of our daily lives. So, the next time you reach for your umbrella, take a moment to appreciate the rich history and fascinating journey that this humble object has taken to get into your hands. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the channel. And as always, thanks for watching. Most people don't know this about me, but I have a peculiar habit. Every time I leave my house, I bring an umbrella with me, even if the weather forecast says there's a 0% chance of rain. Now, you might be thinking that I am either a chronic underestimator of rainfall probability, or that I have some kind of weird umbrella fetish. But no, it's actually because I could unstand to see an umbrella lying around at the end of a trip go on an adventure without its owner. Think of it like a misplaced sock in a laundromat, except with more potential for chaos. Just think about it. How many times have you hailed a taxi only to forget your brolly on the back seat? And how many of those times did the driver return it to you, slam on the brakes in the middle of traffic, turn around, drive back to where you are, track you down, and return your precious cargo before you could even realize what had happened? Probably none. Taxis aren't the only common carriers guilty of swallowing up stray umbrellas. Libraries are also notoriously bad for taking a stroll on the wild side with these types of accessories. Imagine you've just finished browsing the biography section and you re-headed to the checkout desk when suddenly, out of nowhere, someone calls out, "Hold the door, please." You oblige, holding the door open as wide as you can with one hand while you juggle several books in the other. But when you look up, there's no one there. And then you spot an umbrella lying abandoned on the table behind you. Did the owner leave it here on purpose to dry out after getting caught in a sudden shower? Or did they simply forget it and not notice until they were halfway across town? Whatever the reason, it's now your responsibility to find them. And that can be quite the task if you're not carrying a megaphone and a search party. I know what you're thinking. Why would anyone bring an umbrella into a library in the first place, let alone leave it there on purpose? Well, it's called being prepared, and it's a habit I highly recommend if you want to avoid the stress of leaving things behind. But since most people aren't as conscientious as I am, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If an item has a high likelihood of getting left behind, then so be it. I'll be the one to retrieve it. That's why every time I go somewhere with an umbrella, I imagine myself as a sort of real-life Mario, always ready to save the day and return the lost item to its rightful owner. Sometimes I'll even go so far as to say, just leave it there. I'll come back for it. It's all in the name of helping others. Though I must admit, there is a certain sense of satisfaction that comes along with it too, and you don't have to wait until you in a library to put your umbrella skills to the test. Train stations are another prime spot for spotting a wayward brolly, especially when there's a delayed departure or mechanical problems. With everyone rushing around like headless chickens, it's easy for something as small and inconspicuous as an umbrella to get overlooked. So, I make sure to do a thorough sweep of the area before I board the train, just in case. There have been many times when I've saved the day by returning a lost umbrella to a frantic owner just in the nick of time. One time, I was waiting in line to buy a coffee, when I saw a woman frantically searching through her bag. She was in a real state of distress, and I couldn't help but ask if everything was all right. Turns out she had left her umbrella on the train and was worried that it wouldn't be there when she returned. Without hesitation, I told her I'd keep an eye on it, and sure enough, when she got back, umbrella in hand, she was so grateful she almost cried. These are the moments that make my day. Not only did I help someone out, but I also got to practice my people skills and experience the rush of knowing that I made a difference in someone else's life, even if it was just a tiny one. You might be thinking that I'm some kind of superhero of umbrellas, and while I appreciate the sentiment, I assure you it's nothing like that. It's just that simple. It's just a matter of paying attention to your surroundings and having the decency to return something that isn't yours to its rightful owner. So next time you're out and about, don't be like the countless number of people who leave their umbrellas behind. Be like me, the forgotten umbrella finder. Okay, Maybe that's not a good name, but you get the point. Now, I know what you're thinking. All this talk about umbrellas has really got me in the mood for tea and crumpets. However, before you go, I urge you to consider staying for another tale. Why not stick around and see what other crazy situations my fellow humans find themselves in? I promise you won't be disappointed. But if you absolutely must dash off right away, I understand. After all, one can never be fully prepared for the unexpected twists and turns that life has in store. Speaking of which, have you ever accidentally left your umbrella on a train? Share your thoughts below. I can't wait to hear about your own adventures with these tricky brollies. Who knows? Maybe one of your stories will even inspire the next chapter in my ongoing saga as the protector of lost umbrellas. Until next time, stay dry and keep an eye out for those rogue brollies. You never know when they might come in handy. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference in someone's day. So don't forget to pay it forward whenever you can. Who knows? You might just be the hero someone needs without even knowing it. And with that said, it's time to wrap things up. If you enjoyed today's tale and want more just like it, don't forget to show your support. Your feedback means the world to me and helps me keep bringing these stories to life. So what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and join the fun. And hey, why not drop a like while you're at it? It truly means a lot. Once you're all caught up on the latest chapter, be sure to check out more stories. There's something for everyone, so you're sure to find a new favorite. And hey, if you're feeling extra generous, why not share the love? Spread the joy of these stories to your friends and family. Who knows, you might just make their day. It's been an absolute pleasure joining you on this unforgettable journey. And until next time, remember to stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop believing in the power of stories. For thousands of years, we humans have looked up at the sky with envy. We've wanted to fly like birds and soar through the clouds. Yet, there's another part of us that wants to stay grounded, safe and dry, under a canopy of comfort, protected from whatever Mother Nature decides to throw our way. Enter the umbrella. This simple yet ingenious invention has been our constant companion throughout history, shielding us from the sun's scorching rays and the rain's gentle or sometimes angry showers. But have you ever stopped to think about just how cool it is? Today, we're celebrating these everyday heroes. Get ready to be amazed by the evolution of the umbrella, a story as old as time. From humble beginnings to modern marvels, we'll explore the fascinating journey of this iconic accessory that has evolved alongside humanity. Let's start at the very beginning. Before umbrellas, people used whatever they had to shield themselves from the elements. Maybe this was a leaf, maybe a piece of cloth or animal skin. It wasn't until ancient Egypt, around 3,500 years ago, that we saw the first recognizable umbrellas. They were mostly used by the wealthy to protect themselves from the sun. Can you imagine being too poor to own an umbrella? Well, that's not much better than today's first world problem of not having a raincoat. If it's raining and you don't have one, you're going to get wet no matter what. So an umbrella is definitely something to be thankful for. Anyway, back to those ancient Egyptian umbrellas. They were made from papyrus plants and were carried as a symbol of wealth and power. The pharaohs would ride around in their fancy chariots, holding these big umbrellas over their heads. And who could blame them? It's hot in the desert, and everyone wants to stay cool. But the Egyptians weren't the only ones with umbrella envy. In ancient China, umbrellas were also used as a symbol of social status. They were often decorated with beautiful designs and patterns that showed off the owner's wealth. These Chinese umbrellas were made from silk and bamboo and were used during the rainy season to keep the wearer dry. It wasn't all about the rich, though. Umbrellas were also used in ancient India, Greece, and Rome for practical purposes, like protecting important documents or keeping food covered while it's cooking. In fact, during the Roman Empire, umbrellas were so popular that Emperor Nero even passed a law saying that only people of a certain social class could use them. You know, just to keep things fair and equal. But let's fast forward a bit. During the Middle Ages, umbrellas took a backseat to hats and cloaks as people's primary form of sun and rain protection. Perhaps this was because umbrellas were seen as too feminine, or perhaps because they were associated with travelers or foreigners. Regardless, it wasn't until the 18th century that umbrellas started to make a comeback. In the 1700s, London was a muddy, smelly place, and people would often carry long white sticks with them to keep their clothes clean. But this wasn't very practical when it came to rain. So, someone had the brilliant idea of attaching a canopy to these sticks, and voila, the umbrella was born. Soon enough, umbrellas became a common sight on the streets of London and other European cities. They were still seen as a feminine accessory, though, and men who carried them were often ridiculed. But hey, who cares what other people think? If you're stuck in the rain, you're gonna want an umbrella anyway. During the 19th century, umbrellas became more compact and practical thanks to the invention of the folding umbrella. People were now able to carry them around easily, which led to them being seen as a more gender-neutral accessory. Plus, it was easier to whip out an umbrella if you saw a downpour coming on. There were even some fun variations, like the parasol, which had a hoop that kept it open at a fixed angle and was mainly used by women. But it was in the 20th century that umbrellas really came into their own. In 1929, the automatic opening umbrella was invented, making it even easier for people to use them on the go. And in the 1950s, nylon and polyester fabrics made umbrellas lighter and more durable. Since then, umbrellas have become a staple accessory for anyone who doesn't want to get wet or sunburnt. They say nothing lasts forever, but umbrellas are pretty close. Throughout history, they've offered us shelter from the elements. But they've also been a source of style, self-expression, and even empowerment. From the wealthy Egyptians who used them as symbols of power to the modern-day commuters who rely on them to stay dry, umbrellas have played a vital role in our lives. They've come a long way from their humble beginnings as simple canopies to sophisticated tools that keep us safe and sound. And they've managed to maintain their charm and usefulness throughout the ages. Today, we're fortunate to live in an era where umbrellas are not just functional, but also fashionable, with a wide variety of designs, colors, and materials available. We can find the perfect umbrella to match our personal style and needs. No longer are they just a means to an end, but a way to express ourselves and make a statement wherever we go. They've even found their way into pop culture, becoming symbols in literature, movies, and art. How many iconic scenes can you think of that include an umbrella? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Umbrellas have also adapted to the times, becoming more eco-friendly and sustainable. As we become more aware of the importance of protecting the environment, manufacturers have responded by creating umbrellas from recycled materials and implementing more sustainable practices. It's heartwarming to see how umbrellas have evolved alongside our values, ensuring that we can enjoy their benefits without compromising the planet's well-being. And let's not forget the simple pleasure an umbrella provides us. On a rainy day, there's something inexplicably joyful about holding an umbrella and watching the raindrops fall. It's a moment of childlike wonder that reminds us of the beauty in everyday things. And in a world that often feels out of control, an umbrella gives us a small sense of power. Knowing that we can open it up and watch the rain fall around us brings a sense of calm and serenity. It's a reminder that even in the midst of a storm, we can find peace and tranquility. As we look to the future, it's exciting to think about how umbrellas will continue to evolve. Maybe they'll become even more technologically advanced or incorporate new materials and designs. But one thing remains constant: their ability to provide us with shelter, style, and a small sense of control in an unpredictable world. So the next time you reach for an umbrella, take a moment to appreciate its rich history and the impact it's had on our lives. Remember the ancient Egyptians, Chinese, and Indians who first used umbrellas as symbols of power and protection. And think about how far umbrellas have come since then. From simple canopies to sophisticated accessories, they've evolved to meet our changing needs and reflect our personal styles. As we continue to innovate and push the boundaries of what's possible, one thing is certain: umbrellas will always be there for us, ready to provide us with shelter, style, and a small sense of control in an unpredictable world. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating world of umbrellas. We hope you've enjoyed learning about the evolution of this iconic accessory and its impact on our lives. If you did, please don't hesitate to show your support. Your likes and shares help us continue producing these videos and bringing more amazing content to you. Also, if you have any thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share with us, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. We love hearing from our viewers, and your feedback helps us improve our videos. Once again, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video. But alas, we've reached the end of our story today, and it's time to part ways.